Hey everybody, welcome back to the 108th episode of Taps of Patience. Believe it or not, this is probably the 120th intro I've done, and I still stumble. I'm AJ with Audacity Micro here with Harrison of Game Streamer Pro. Harrison had an AV upgrade, and he looks like a professional streamer now.
Yes. Yeah, new camera, new background, and I left my work laptop at work. So this is a new computer. Old computer, but due to the podcast.
Your green screen puts my green screen to shame.
It's an awesome green screen. If you need a good green screen, I can send you the Amazon link. This one was like $150 or something, and it's self-contained. It's awesome. You just pull it out, pull it up. When you're done, push it down, put it in the corner. It's awesome.
I think mine was $25.
So,
if that. It's just a piece of green fabric, basically. It's blue on the back, though, so that's fancy.
Mm-hmm. This one was super nice.
Yeah, mine is small because when I use it is when I'm recording like Fusion tutorials, and I crop myself in pretty heavily. So like it doesn't need to be more than just kind of, my head and shoulders, no knees and toes. So this podcast may be a little bit different, and that is because I am still running that really big order of parts. So I am going to occasionally run away and just leave Harrison hanging to entertain all of you. For example, right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess AJ's running off, and he won't really know what we're talking about while he's gone, and I guess that means he can hear me? Oh, okay, never mind. I was going to say we could say things that he wouldn't appeal of. No. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on in my world. And the biggest thing is that we have an open house coming up on Friday. So I've been working towards getting ready for that, which has been a lot of work on the shop, making it look a lot nicer, a lot more put together, getting rid of all of our construction projects that we have going on and trying to get them nailed down and finished up. So what that entails is we had a couple doors or a couple openings that needed doors that now have doors in them. We've been putting some picture frames and hanging up some different things on the walls, making it look a little bit more, I want to say homey, but it's a business, but kind of give it a little bit more personality and less stale of an environment. Make it look nice. So I'm looking forward to that. That's other things like making the shop floors look good, like clean up the floors and get everything put away. We've got tables now in front of all the machines, which is nice. I got the UMC running now. Today I was able to I finished up all the fixtures, and I was able to run my first few set of parts through the UMC, which was nice. I will say that so far, the UMC is actually slower than the VF.
Really? Why do you think that is?
I know why it is, and that is because the brake release on the 4th and 5th axis is much slower than on the VF.
Interesting. I wonder, is that something you can change? Like, can you parameter that? Or
yes. Well, you can. There's things you can do to make it less of a problem, and one of those is there's M10 through M13 control when the brakes come on for the 4th and 5th axis. It's M10 and 11 is clamp and release for the 4th, and then 11 and then 12 and 13 is clamp and release for the 5th. And right now, the way Fusion is handling it, it's doing a couple things. One, it's putting the M10 and M12, or M10 and M12, or 11 and 13, depending on if you're clamping or unclamping. It's putting those on two different lines instead of on one line. And so it's like, release one axis, release the next axis. And so and it takes about a second and a half to release an axis. And
A
so,
second and a half?
mm-hmm. And so that's 3 seconds to clamp and 3 seconds to unclamp.
Wow. Yeah,
And so
that's
that's,
wild.
yeah, it's so slow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple things. First, as long as my tools, I talked to a couple guys, and it sounds like as long as my tools are less than a quarter inch and I'm not reefing on the parts, I can leave everything unclamped. So
Mm-hmm.
I can just unclamp it and just let it go for the smaller parts, which is what I'm probably going to do. And then, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing I can do is I can put the things that when it does need a clamp and reclamp, I can put them on the same line. And provided that I have, provided that, what was it? Provided that I clamp it first, I don't need to tell it to clamp and unclamp every cycle. It'll do that on its own. Like it's smart enough to know that things are clamped or not, and to not move the axes, and to automatically unclamp them.
Okay.
However, the only time you do need to do clamp and unclamp is whenever you are doing full simultaneous 5-axis. When you do that, then you have to, um, you
Tell it
have
to
to.
unclamp.
Mm-hmm.
That, I guess, makes sense.
So, but other than that, got that up and running, and it was exciting to see it actually working.
Mm-hmm.
So its rotary is significantly faster than the VF. It's just so slow at clamping, and that's what
Huh.
ticks me off. But
I wonder why would it take a second and a half to clamp and unclamp?
well, I'll tell you why. At least this is conjecture, but I did a little investigating. They got really mad. I ran a quarter-inch airline. Like I have three-quarter-inch airline around the shop, all the way around, and then I had a little quarter-inch jump to the machines. This was back a couple months ago. I think we
Mm-hmm.
talked about it with like my hard tool changes, and then I upgraded that to half-inch airlines. Well, they're using like quarter-inch or eighth-inch airlines to unclamp and reclamp those brakes.
Mm.
And so like I can watch the gauge on the air cabinet on the outside of the machine, and it doesn't budge hardly at all whenever the brakes are applied. But I can see through slits in the back of the machine, and I can see the gauges for the clamps for the axes and for the rotational axes, and I can watch the gauge pressure just slowly climb and drop, and
Really?
it's slow. And so I
Is that
kind of
something
go ahead.
like could you talk Haas into changing that for you? Like
I wondered if like if you could go in and so I could potentially put in bigger airlines myself, but it's also hard coded the delay time. I believe.
really?
I believe, yeah. So even if I could get it to go faster, I'd have to go in and change the parameters. I think.
Have you talked to Haas about this at all yet?
No, no. I mean, this is just stuff I figured out today, more or
Yeah.
less.
I would be curious what they say about it.
So,
Because yeah, like a 3 second like rotation indexing time is it's
well,
a lot of
it would
time
be a second and a half if they were on the
if
same
they were on the
line,
same line. Yeah.
which and I think it's even faster if you don't use the M commands. Like if you, I tried this. I ran a program. It was about a 9 minute, just over 9 minute program, and then I tried removing all of the M10 through M13 commands
Mm-hmm.
in a text editor. I just replaced them with parentheses in case I needed to add any of them back. I could just add them back, and then I ran the code again, and it automatically clamped and unclamped without those
Really?
codes. And it was faster by 45 seconds on a 9-minute program. So it made a big difference.
Yeah.
And it was still clamping and unclamping. And if I had turned I believe, like I said, if the brakes are applied and then you tell it to rotate to a position, to index to a position, it'll automatically release the brakes to get to that position.
Mm.
But if you tell the brakes to turn off, then they will stay off until you tell them to turn on. And so it'll go to a position and leave the brakes off. But when you're ready to go to the next position, they're already off. So it goes even faster. So, but you don't want to do that if you're doing large tools, because then you're going to put all that force into your trunnion. So
Yeah.
I'm going to play around with it some. And I think I can get a lot of time for this type of high volume part. I think I can optimize it, and I think I can get out several minutes of cycle time in just the clamping. And and like if I know I'm gonna have a stretch of like really small tools, I'll just leave the whole system unclamped and only clamp it whenever I have bigger tools coming in.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is the post putting in? Oh, you said it was putting in these M codes because they're on the same line or on different lines. They need to be on the same.
Yeah, they need to be on the same line. I need. That's probably something I can just edit in Fusion, like Fusion's post. Like, hey, if you're gonna put in 2 lines, put them on the same line, because
That's super easy to do. I could do that post edit for you if you aren't comfortable, but that's really easy.
I need to get comfortable. I used to program a lot back in college. I just haven't sat down and looked through any of the posts in a long time. It's just something I just need to sit down and do. But maybe having someone look over my shoulders, because you do a lot more programming stuff than I do. So,
well, I mean, maybe recently. I'm sure you have more, like you have a lot more experience overall than I do.
yeah, but I mean, like you did like those the coins, and like you've done a lot of coding within Fusion to like do some really cool automated stuff
in the API. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
which now would have been 10 times easier thanks to ChatGPT. But
hey. Yeah, oh yeah, and see that was the other thing I was going to do is I was going to start playing around with ChatGPT, because like I was listening to the Business of Machining podcast, The Bomb, and like Grimsmo talking about like how he was taking it. He had ChatGPT write a program where it had something to do with one of his knife blades. Like he wanted it to like do a radius, flat, radius, and I think it was grinding the bevel.
Yep.
And he had ChatGPT write a Python script that he could plug it into, and it came out like really good. So yeah, that's like makes me want to play with ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's how I've been writing like my Python robot automation stuff that I've been working on in the background. It's all ChatGPT. I've done almost zero manual code on that.
You should make a video on that, because like
I should.
That would be cool to like see. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but it'd be like, it's this easy.
It is that easy. Though I think I'm going to change from ChatGPT to a local client or local language model. I didn't realize how easy it was to like run it locally on your own hardware. There's apparently a lot of really good open source things out there to where you can basically have the ChatGPT interface, but not go to the cloud at all. And the advantage of that is the problem with ChatGPT is it can only take so much what's called context, where some background. Okay, so whenever you send you type a thing into ChatGPT, it is making a call to its API, and the API has no memory of your previous conversations. That only exists like in your little local account. So what your little local account's doing is providing context, which is all the messages that you've provided before, except it can't send, gigabytes of text every single time. So like as that chat history gets longer, it starts to like, there's some buffer, 100, well, not 100, like 10,000 characters or something like that. It'll only remember those 10,000 characters of context and only send off that context to the API to get, crunched on and then give you the answer. And when you're doing more complicated code, it like that 10,000 characters or whatever it is, I'm making that up. Maybe it's 100,000. I don't know. But that limit becomes rather limiting, and it forgets what other parts of your program are doing. And so you have to kind of chunk out your code to be like basically small enough to fit inside the ChatGPT context limits. But if you run it locally, I believe like you're controlling it. You can do whatever context you want. So I can have it set up so that it always knows the full code every single time. And that would help a lot.
Your saw, does it usually spray out?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I run it locally, it'll be slower because it doesn't have like a bajillion NVIDIA graphics cards doing all the math for me. But like it'll just be easier to use because it'll know the whole context. So I haven't played with that yet, but that's the next step.
Nice. So what else is going on in your world off of the coding and ChatGPT and stuff like that?
Well, I haven't worked on that stuff for a while. I have been just slammed. I've been so busy. I bit off more than I could chew. I was like, I had myself booked solid for like, I had like 3 weeks of work lined up to be like constantly busy. And then I got a call from the people that I do the Fusion consulting with. And they're like, hey, you want to come do a class next week?
Ooh.
And I was like, well, I guess I will. And that was, I don't know, December last week before last, something like that. And so I went down to Kentucky and got to hang out at a pretty cool company doing some CAD and machining stuff, teaching some like kind of more funky Fusion cam. But that was 4 days plus a day of travel. Well, okay, plus half a day of travel to get there. So I was already booked solid, and then I all of a sudden lost like 4.5 days.
Oh,
and
man.
It just wrecked my schedule.
Wow. Yeah, that happens. Are you going to be able to get your stuff done by the first due date?
I don't know. We'll see how the other ops go, but I'm definitely running behind where I would like to be. I started like a week late of what my goal was, and then also things have been taking longer. So I don't know. They were due, the first batch of 600 is due Friday. I might be able to do Monday.
Do Friday?
Yeah.
How? And you haven't even got, you don't have a finished part done yet?
Technically, I have 2 finished parts.
Oh man.
So
that's stressful. I mean, I've done 500 parts a week on my machines, 500-600 parts a week, and that's stressful. Just telling you flat out.
Oh, I am aware. I believe my cutoff date of when I needed to be started was the 28th. And that was like I think it was the 28th. That was like, I need to be started by this, otherwise it's going to be miserable. And today has really been my first full day of being really in the swing of production. So yesterday I did kind of a lot of troubleshooting, and I figured out plan A did not work. And so then I had to come up with plan B.
How long's your first cycle?
So right now, it was about 15 minutes for the first 4 op ones, like actual machine time, not Fusion time. But I realized over the weekend that I didn't have enough of the 1/2-inch tools that I'm using. And then earlier today I broke one, and it was the last tool I had that was good for roughing. So I switched to an old beat up 3 flute that I had laying around. So I still have a good finishing tool, but I'm roughing with an aluminum tool. And it's actually doing pretty well. It's made, I don't know, 100 parts or something so far. But that, 1, because there was less flutes, 2, because I'm babying it more because it's not really the right tool, that pushed me up to about 17 minutes. for those first 4 op ones.
And you've got 100 done.
Total right now, I'm coming up on 200.
Okay, that's less bad, but to put things in perspective, if I'm running 10-hour days I can get, of the parts that I'm running, those magwells, I've got it down to about 9 to 10 minutes per part. And if I'm running 10-hour days, I can get basically 80 of them done a day. And so at 15 minutes or 17 minutes for one cycle, you're not going to make it.
No, there's no way.
Like there's no way you're going to. Yeah.
Yeah, even if I didn't have downtime. So let's see, 400 part. Oh, I did this math wrong. I need 100 more batches at 15 minutes each. That's 25 hours left of op ones.
So wait, when you say batches, is it 15 minutes for more than one part?
Oh yeah, 15 minutes for 4 parts.
Oh, okay.
For 4 op ones.
That changes the math drastically.
So yeah, I have about 25 hours of op ones left.
Okay.
I do need to play a little bit of an optimization game here, where it would be much better for me to ship 300 parts on that Friday. Well, that Friday, meaning this Friday, like in 5 days here. It'd be much better for me to ship 300 finished parts than to have 600 parts that are half done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at some point here, I need to do the switch.
Are you doing this all in one vise right now?
So right now I'm doing 2 parts in my 6-inch vise. Okay. And then I have 1 part each in 2 different of those Iroha little import serrated vices.
Okay.
So 3 vices, 4 parts.
Do you have any more room on the table?
Not without rearranging everything.
Okay. Because if you can get to a point where you can flow through, that would be ideal.
Well, I need to go change out parts. Speaking of parts, say what you're going to say, and then when you get back, I'll tell you my plan going forwards.
Okay. So, as an outsider who's been trying to keep up with this little adventure, you definitely want to flow through. Me and AJ talked a little bit before the podcast started, and he was thinking about changing vices from the little imports to the flux vice. And so I would try to do that now and try to start flowing things if I could. That way you don't run into a situation where you have a whole bunch of op ones and you're waiting for everything else to get done. Because the sooner you can start flowing, the better. And if you can find a way that you can build it into where you can keep flowing, that would be ideal. Worst case is if you're trying to transition between the two, if you want to add in the flux vices, but you're also trying to keep going with what you currently have, then whatever vice you're going to dedicate to op 1, I would leave. And then while you're trying to get the flux vice set up, in between setups or programming or whatever, if you need to step away for a little bit, get it back making op 1s on the vice that's open. And then whenever it pauses, get in there and start working on your fixtures and your setups. That way the machine spindle's never stopped. So you're either making progress on your fixture and you're ready to start doing other ops, or you're making op 1s. And then once you get op 2 set up and going, then you have op 1s and op 2, and then you can do the same thing for op 3. That way and then eventually you get to the point where you're flowing through all 3 stages, hopefully, in an ideal world. But yeah, whenever you get into the production world, every second matters, and so inefficiencies will end up driving you up a wall. But that's one of the reasons I like standing there and watching my machine run, is because I'll watch it and I'll go, ooh, I can save a half a second there, or I can save a minute there, and or a couple seconds there, and it's a lot of fun to try to optimize stuff out. How much of that can you hear? Do you have headphones in?
Yeah, I have headphones on. My
Okay.
hair has gotten so long that it's hiding my over-ear headphones.
Oh, you have
but I can hear
over-ear-
everything.
You have over-ear headphones. Man, I thought you had like AirPods or something.
Nope, I desperately need a haircut. That's something else I've been meaning to do for a long time and haven't gotten around to. So I agree with you. I think on all accounts, we didn't mention on the podcast the reason that I'm not one piece flowing at the moment, and that is because that was plan A, and I screwed around with that for like a day and a half, but I kept running into issues where the parts were coming off inconsistent. And it turns out it's because I was using those Zindian vices that are designed for soft jaws. And I think there was probably a couple factors at play. The first one was I had two different parts in each vice. So I had two of those vices on the table. Each were holding two parts, two for op2, two for op3. And the stick out on them was rather tall. Like the part, like I could only hold on to, it was like 5/8 of an inch or something like that. And there was like 1.5 inches sticking up. So there's a lot of leverage on the soft jaws. And then also because I had two of them, I just couldn't get enough clamping force in there. And so it was like basically the parts were just moving on me. They would try to tilt a little bit in the vise and then, the errors would propagate from op2 is really the problem. Op3 was fine, but in op2, the errors would, they would tilt a little bit and then those errors would propagate to op3.
So, so were you holding 2 in op1, 2 in op2, 2 in op3?
Correct.
So, and you said op3 was okay and op1 was okay?
Op3 may have been okay. I'm a little bit unsure because I didn't get a chance to run a whole lot of those because op2 was problematic.
Okay.
So, because I was seeing some errors show up in op2, but in op3, but I believe those errors started in op2.
Gotcha. Do you think you could take your two import vices and dedicate one part to each of them for op2 and then use your flux to hold two parts? Like, do you have two? Do you have two?
I have two flux vices.
Oh, okay.
So 2 double station vices.
Oh, okay, then you're fine. You're fine then.
Yeah. So I can either use the flux vices and go back to single piece flow, or I can put soft jaws in my 6-inch vice and do a total of 6 parts at a time.
6 parts?
Yeah, because I could put 2 in soft jaws in my 6-inch vice and then 2 each in my flux vices.
Gotcha.
So,
can you not hold more than that on your table? I feel like you should have more space, or
I could. So my 6-inch vice is probably 3 inches away from the edge of my X travel.
Okay.
And the Aroa thingies are probably 1 inch or 2 away. So if I scooted those out to like as far out as they could be, I could get some more room.
Are you trying to leave the Aroas on and work around them, or
no? I'll have to take them off to get the flux vices on, unless I rearrange everything.
Gotcha.
But I'll just take them off. I think I'm gonna. Well, this was my plan. I don't know if this plan is still going to exist soon, but my original plan was to take the 6-inch vice completely off the table and just have the 2 Aroas. But I suppose if I'm having issues with the doing larger parts on those, maybe I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to play with it. I know that like for the larger stuff, those vices are awesome. Although, like a good 6-inch vice is nice. Although now that I'm getting into some nicer self-centering smaller vices, those hold really good too. So
for op1s, they're definitely fine. Like, I don't know if you can hear the machine running in the background.
Yeah,
but it's wailing on the little $50 vice. It is wailing with a 1/2-inch end mill. I've backed it down when I went to that the aluminum tool, but it was running like 700 SFM. At one point, I was at 9 thou feed per tooth. I backed it down a little bit because that was, as the tool was getting duller, I was watching my spindle load creep up towards 300%, which is where it will air out. So I backed it back down to, I think I'm at 7 thou or 5 thou feet per tooth now.
Goodness. What's your width of cut?
The width of cut was 30 thou, and the depth of cut, it starts at like 1.25 inches and then backs down a little bit as more of the part gets whittled away.
That's pretty impressive. Not gonna lie, that's very impressive.
Dude, this is a Tormach.
That is super impressive.
I can tell you from experience and some of my optimization issues, I run out of spindle horsepower before I run out of rigidity. It's awesome.
So, well, not only that, but I mean, you couldn't have done anywhere close to that on the 1100.
No, you couldn't have gotten even close to that with a 3/8.
No, nowhere near that. I mean, I think I maxed out on a 1/4-inch tool and steel and stainless because, like, I don't think you could get up to a 3/8 tool without it running out of torque.
Yeah, this thing is great. I've had no complaints about this. Well, okay, I've had one complaint about this machine, which is there's 2 complaints, both of which have been resolved. But in terms of like mechanically, nothing has been wrong with this machine at all. At one point, I ran out of ways to store chips during this job, like on Sunday night. And so I just started letting chips build up in the machine. And just earlier today, I started emptying those out. So it was basically like a day of production, probably 16 hours of production or something.
Mm-hmm.
I have filled up 3 of those totes. Like, I think they're like 30-gallon totes or 50-gallon totes, something like that. And that was one side of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about the bugs because I don't think we've talked about the issues I've had with the Tormach.
No, we haven't.
So this was the first failure I've had on this machine. Is there was one day where I was running the machine and I walked away and I came back and it was like the controller had just been restarted. Like there was no error messages or anything, but like I had to hit the reset button and I went, that's strange. And I just didn't think about it again and moved on. And then like a week later, I came back and it was the same thing. And I was like, okay, it's happened twice now. And so I sent Tormach a message like, hey, I think there's a bug or something that's crashing the controller when it's doing nothing. And then like 2 days later, I was jogging the machine. And in the middle of jogging the machine, it just shut down and booted back up like nothing had happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, very strange. And then throughout the rest of the day, the problem slowly got worse to the point where like within 45 seconds of me hitting cycle start, it would crash and reset. And this is when I called, as soon as I started having these issues, I, emailed Tormach support and they were like, oh, so you have an early serial number, which I do. It's serial number 42. And we had a power supply issue on the controller. And they were like, well, we'll overnight you a new one. And then I got talking to Norman, and Norman was like, hold on, we can MacGyver this. And so he made me go around and check like if I had any old laptop power supplies. Mm-hmm. And I did. I found one that worked, and we spliced it into the cord that came on the PathPilot controller and plugged it in. No problem at all. So this is apparently, it was a known issue, and they've like right after mine, they switched to a different power supply.
So did you replace it with the correct power supply when it came in? Or are you still MacGyvered?
It's in a box. Right now it's still MacGyvered. Which is fine. It's just like the power supply is now plugged into a different outlet than the machine. It's fine. But I got back up and running within like 2 hours thanks to MacGyvering that with Norman. And then the other issue I had was a weird bug that I ran into on this very program that's running right now. And I have a probing operation at the stop. It's marked as optional, so I can turn on block delete to turn off that probing operation. But it probes in, it finds the center of all 4 work pieces, which occasionally I'll do if like I find out a batch of stock is a little bit different size than normal or whatever. I'll turn on that probing operation. Or like right now when I'm not actively monitoring the machine for a little extra safety, I turn on that block delete so that it does that probing. But anyway, there was like a time earlier where I broke a reamer and I put in a new one and I wanted to restart that operation. And when I went to restart the operation, it went like way the heck off to the side. And for some reason, if there is a probing operation at the beginning of your code, and it may be because it was behind a block skip. Did that break a tool? No, okay, we're good. Because it was behind a block, or maybe because it was behind a block skip, but restarting it, you know how like when you restart a program, it like plays back through the G code to make sure that like the spindle's on and the coolant's on and stuff like that. For some reason, it like half does the probing operation, where it replays the probing operation at its current location.
Interesting.
And changes your work coordinate offset.
Oh.
So
that's weird.
Yeah. Tormach is now aware, and that has been patched for the next update, but it was a very weird bug.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a weird one.
Yep. So I found a couple of those. I also haven't been able to recreate this, but during one program, it kept turning on the tool setter, and then the tool setter would get jostled, and it would throw an error. And I have not been able to recreate that. But it's like, that's a weird bug. But again, Tormach knows, and they'll take care of it. So
yeah, and I mean, Haas has their own weird bugs every once in a while in the controller too. Like I was running a program today, and I did a program restart, and it just, once it caught up to where it was supposed to go, it would just run the program really, really slow and laggy, like the whole program.
That's interesting.
But once I reset and ran the next program, it was back to running just fine. But something about that program restart, I've had it happen a couple times on program restart, but the rest of the time it's fine. I don't know what causes that, but it's like it fills its buffer.
Yeah.
Trying to read all the code as fast as it can, and then it never gets ahead afterwards. So maybe if I just feed hold and
that'd be interesting to try.
Let it just sit there for a little bit and kind of clear out its buffer. Yeah. I should try that next time.
Oh, I had a train of thought and I lost it. Oh, one thing Tormach just added that I'm a big fan of that more machines should have, or maybe they do and I'm not familiar, but at least as far as I know, the Haas doesn't. On the probing macro screen, they added a button that tool changes to the probe.
Oh, nice.
So simple, but like whenever you're on the macro page, you're going to want to have the probe, and you almost never have the probe in the spindle when you need it. Like you always have to change it. Like just a button. It's great.
Well, to be fair, this is Tormach's first wireless probe. You wouldn't have it in the tool changer normally. So like
that is true.
Normally you'd have to tool change to something else and then manually put it in there. You are the button at that point.
Yeah. All right, I've been talking a lot. So I know you have also been super busy. You got a new machine. You got a spindle replaced.
Yeah, and I was sick last week. Bad. I'm still recovering, actually, a little bit.
What kind of sick?
3 days in a row of hitting over 102-degree fever and not going into the shop for 2 days in a row. So, Wednesday...
Which implies that one day he was in the shop with 103-degree fever.
No, what happened was I came home Wednesday night and I was feeling really bad, and I took my temperature and it was 102. And then I didn't come in Thursday or Friday, and then I don't normally work Saturdays. And so basically I had 3 days in a row of 102. And it knocked me down hard, whatever it is. My wife is starting to get it, the same thing, I think. So hopefully hers isn't as bad as mine was. But whatever it was, I normally don't get sick very often, but I've had I've gotten hit twice now within the last 2 months, and I'm not sure what's caused that, but all I have left right now is a bad cough that I'm trying to mute myself every time I have a spasm. to not blow everyone's ears out. So
Was Weston at least able to hold down the fort?
yeah, we're a little bit behind now because of it, though. He couldn't keep up with everything, and
One person is not two.
yeah, and he didn't feel comfortable. I was setting everything up on the 5-axis on the UMC, so for the 2 days that I was down was the 2 days we were hoping to have the machine up and running, and so that didn't happen till today. So,
what kind of tool holders did you get for that thing?
just a bunch of Haas holders, ER.
Okay.
So, like, I still want to go RegoFix at some point, but as with everything in this world, that costs money, and we've been spending it faster than we've been making it, so we got to kind of wait until everything kind of catches up.
Yep.
So we need to pump the brakes on buying some big stuff for a little bit until we kind of regain some of our cash reserves. But that being said, by cash flow wise, I think we will have brought in the same amount of to what we brought in till like middle of February, I think, at least based on our trajectory, took us until like May or June last year to make. So like cash flow wise, like we're 4 or 5 months ahead of where we were last year already. So like we're doing really well if we can keep up at this pace. If I slow down for a little bit, it won't take us long to kind of get back on track.
I would have to go back and look at my numbers for last year. Man, I bet I'm like my January was so good that I would probably at like, I don't know, August or something of what I did last year already. Like it, beginning of last year was very slow for me because I was just getting started, and beginning of this year has been nuts. So, and that's not even including this big job, which of course I haven't gotten any money for yet. I've just spent a lot of materials and tooling.
Now, what about your Haas machine while all this is going on? Is it just sitting there?
Right now, it is just sitting there. I was debating using it for Op3. The problem is Op3 doesn't have much material removal, but it has a high surface finish requirement on one of the floors.
Mm-hmm.
And with the spindle in its current shape, I just don't know if I'm going to hit it. It's like a 32 RA. I don't think that machine's going to hit a 32 RA.
So, with that being said, spindle rebuild time?
I know. Now probably would be a good time to do it. For the first time, I do actually have a cash reserve. And I don't know, it's a question of, do I want to keep it at its current level and just save up some more, or do I want to eat into that cash reserve to rebuild the spindle?
If you got the cash available to you, and this has been a problem that you've been fighting for a while, and you're not using the machine, I would venture to try to get that fixed.
That's true. I do start teaching here later this week as well, which is going to make this job even more fun to run. So with like for the next 8 weeks, with a lot of my time going to be taken up by teaching and a fair amount of my necessary income covered, that might be a good time to do it.
Mm-hmm. Have you got a quote on it, or do you know where you're going to send it?
I have a quote that's now out of date. I believe it was about $1,600 or no, $2,400. I have to look back. It was either $1,600 or $2,400 if I'm not in a hurry. And then you can pay more if you're in a hurry.
And how long was the lead time?
I don't remember. It's been too long. I think it was probably 2 weeks, unless you want to pay more.
Oh, that's not bad. I mean,
no,
it's bad if you're down. Don't get me wrong. But if you're going to be busy and unable to keep that machine busy during that time, then I would get on it sooner than later.
Yeah,
unless you can find like a used spindle that you can send in there to get rebuilt. That
it's a unicorn. It doesn't exist. Even Haas doesn't have them. If I like got a direct replacement from Haas or had Haas repair it, they would either like convert the machine to 30K or to 50K. The 40K
Gotcha.
spindle just doesn't exist anymore.
And it's just an oddball. Like you can't get a 50K spindle and run it at 40.
Well, I mean, I could do that, but if I have a 50K spindle, why not run it at 50K?
Well, I mean, you're not changing out the motor. You're just changing out the cartridge, right?
Yes. But if they were to install the 50K, it would change the pulley ratios, because the 50K spindle would have a smaller pulley on it. And so I would be losing torque.
Gotcha.
You should talk about your Haas install. Well, I go change parts.
Oh, okay.
Or whatever you want.
I'm running out of individual topics, but I'll see what I can do. So the install ended up taking longer than planned. I think it took almost a week. And we ended up having a lady do the install. And whenever we got our VF installed last year, she was a trainee at that point. And so she'd been to the shop before, and she was helping the other guy do the install. This time she was on her own, and I could tell that she was still learning. She was doing everything by the book and basically reading a manual, going through the steps to do the install. What ended up slowing her down the most was getting the machine level. That pretty much stumped her on one day for 1 day. And then the next day, the guy who had trained her came by the shop, and because he had finished up his install, and he helped her kind of get back on track. And he helped her get the machine level. And he said that there was something like there was a little twist in the casting that was kind of a pain. So he's like, it's not completely her fault. He said it took him a little bit to get it leveled out as well. But they got that straightened out. And then we had forgotten to order the machine with the through table air. I didn't even know that was an option. And so we had to pull the platter off of the machine, which was very stressful. And I would not want to install that option in the field in the future. If I were to do this again, I would definitely want to have that installed from the factory, because they have to pull that whole the center platter off, and then they have to install it in the center through the machine, and they have to open everything up. And I was just stressed out the whole time that something was going to get, somewhere it wasn't supposed to, and cause problems whenever it got put back together. So, and to make matters worse, we had to drive our forklift in to the machine, like in through the front door, to pick up the platter off. So like it was just super stressful.
A little scary.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I hope it got put together as good as it was from the factory.
Yeah. How is the table mounted?
6 bolts through the top. And then they're capped.
Is it just like a precision ground surface that mates to a precision ground surface?
Kind of. I mean, yeah, more or less. It was a ring that was, and so there's a top mating surface and then a circular surface, and it rode on both. And then the bolts went to, when it bolted down, the bolts went to the drive mechanism that rotated it. And so, but they were it was bolted to that, it wasn't touching anything between the two. Like the bolts went between the two because the platter was riding on the outer mating surfaces. I don't know if I'm describing that well, but
I think I understand.
There's an outer ring that it rode on the top and around the perimeter of. And on the inside where it bolted to that plate, I don't believe there was actual contact between those two plates. The bolts just went. Okay. The bolts just pulled it down, and I don't think it actually. If it did contact, it's only. It contacted the outer first, and it was like maybe you torqued it down to spec, and then that when they touched, I don't know, something like that.
Makes sense.
But it was stressful taking that off.
So how much is that machine running now?
Well, today's the first day we're running.
Okay.
So, but once it's up and running, it should be running all day, every day with the VF. Because we're behind on our magwells, and we asked them if they wanted to shift the schedule or if they wanted us to try to make up and catch up, and they said make up and catch up. So,
Well, yeah, of course they said that.
so we're behind now by over 1,000 pieces, and so I need to catch back up, and I can produce 500 to 600 a week. So,
Okay. So you need to invent 2 weeks worth of time.
yes. So, more or less. And we have a whole bunch of packaging that we ordered for these parts to ship them in. Some reusable packaging that we can ship to the anodizers, that the anodizers
nice.
can reuse to ship to the supplier, and then into the customer, and the customer can send us the empty packaging back, so it can just kind of keep going in circles.
Okay, that's cool.
And that packaging is late because we have over 500 pieces that are ready to go out the door to anodize. I'm just waiting on that packaging to show up. So,
what does the packaging look like?
they're trays that so you have a hard plastic bottom. You know those signs, like the political signs you see in people's yards? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's that plastic material with a foam glued to it. The foam that's glued to it has pockets that you can stick the pieces in. And then there's another piece of foam that goes on top. And then that flat piece on the bottom, it has 2 fingers that come out that can go around to the top on either side. So, or 4 of them. So 4 on all 4 corners. And then they have a little piece of Velcro that goes in the 4 corners that sticks together, that holds that whole assembly together. And so it forms this little pancake slice that can hold 50 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stack them 5 tall into a cardboard box. And so you can hold 250 to a box, which is what we're trying to get.
That sounds it sounds like it'd be very professional and keep it would show your anodizers that you care.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
Set
would
the right
help
tone.
Because I just got an email today saying that 276 parts failed from anodizing.
Oh no! Your customer said that?
Yeah, yeah.
Not the anodizer.
No, customer said that the anodizer, that they had this many parts, and so they're asking us what to do, and we said ship them straight to the anodizer. So, I don't know if our customer can complain too much to us because they were the ones that found the anodizer. So
that's good at least.
But what's happened is one of the engineers found the anodizer, and then the customer was like, "All right, we want to have anodizing get paid to you. We don't want to pay the anodizer," and so they're paying us, and we're paying the anodizer. And if it would be much easier on our end if it was like, "Listen, we got the parts done. We ship them to anodizing. You deal with the anodizer." That's not our problem at that point.
Yep.
But they don't want to do that. They want to yell at us so we can go yell at them.
That's why. That makes sense.
So, but
I made a thing today. I made a couple things today.
What kind of thing?
I was going to show the show and tell time. So today I took a couple minutes to design a parametric gauge pin holder, and I guess the people who are listening on audio can't tell, but it's just a little 3D printed thing that has a slot on, or a round hole on one side, and the words go, and a X on the other side, short for no go. And so, like on these parts, I have, I don't know, 3 or 4 sets of these go, no go pins that I check at least one part out of every batch that comes off, or I'll check a couple random features across all 4 parts. And it's been super handy. So today in Fusion, I did a quick little live stream, and I drew these up so they were all parametric. So all you have to do is type in your 2 pin sizes, and then it'll spit out a model that you can then 3D print. I'll have that up on printables eventually.
Is it just a light press fit, or how does it actually hold them? How does it retain them?
It is a light press fit, but then there's also like a little bit of a flexure, and you wrap a zip tie around it. There's a slot for a zip tie.
Oh.
You wrap the zip tie around it, and that clinches it the rest of the way in.
Gotcha. So it's a split that the zip tie.
Yes.
That's cool. Okay.
So I'm pretty happy with the design. I'll probably make a lot of these as I go forwards. I also have I have a version of the model for 2-color printing. I don't have a 2-color printer right now, but I figure someone on like Printables may want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty happy
need
with
a
these.
multicolor 3D print to do for our open house, because we've never done we have the bamboo with the AMS.
Oh, do you? Which one?
The P1S. P1S.
Okay.
Not the X1. The one below it. But we have it with the multi-material, which we use the multi-material thing all the time, but it's just we're printing one color and we just switch between the colors.
Yeah.
We haven't actually done very many multicolor prints.
So this was actually going to be the next question I had for you. So I'm going to get a new printer here soon in the near future. That's pretty much settled. I was waiting until reviews on the Prusa Core 1 came out to see if they could convince me to go that way. And long story short, I really like the machine. I really like Prusa as a company, but oh my gosh, is it expensive compared to a P1S. So I will unfortunately not be going that way. The results were basically, it's as good as the Bamboo Labs, but it costs twice as much. So I am going to be getting a Bamboo Labs. But here's the question. So this printer is not going to directly make me money. It'll indirectly help me make money. But like, it's a piece of support equipment. It is not something that I need to keep the shop running. How do you evaluate if it's worth it and when? Because I have a Prusa Mini. It prints fine. The prints are, they take twice as long and they're half as good looking, but it does print. So how do you evaluate essentially what's a luxury buy, a convenience purchase?
So I guess I would bounce back to you, because it's different. Everyone's business is at different stages. When we were just starting out and we wanted to buy, a $10 end mill versus a $20 end mill, you had to really justify that $20 end mill over that $10 end mill, even though looking at it today, that's an easy purchase. And as you grow and as you get healthier financially, that barrier moves up. And so for us, whenever it came time to do that purchase, well, there's kind of two things with that. When we bought the Bamboo printer, we actually sold both of our Prusas, and it basically covered.
That makes sense.
Switching over to that printer. So it effectively cost us nothing. We sold 2 printers and got one, and we can get prints off. We can get more printed in 24 hours on that printer than we could on the 2 Prusas. Yeah. So that's how we settled that thing. But the point I was trying to make before that was, at some point, you'll reach a point in your business where spending, $600 on something that's going to help you but not necessarily justify it is an easy expense to make. And we're getting closer to that point where, it might not be the most justifiable thing, but we have enough, we're making enough, and we have enough excess cash coming in for purchases like that I don't stress about it. I just pull the trigger. And I don't sit down there and like math it out like that.
So your solution is lifestyle creep?
Yes and no. Because think about it. Like, there's things that like you want to buy to improve your shop, and over time, there's small things, but over time you start spending more and more and more to make your shop better and better and better. If you look at our shop today we've spent a ton of money on a lot of different things, and so quite frankly, a purchase like the printer is not something that me and Weston will really stress about. If we need it, or if we can justify it to ourselves, we'll just spend the money to get it at this point. It has to be a purchase of probably about it had to be over $1,000 for us to really slow down and try to decide if that's a purchase we need to make. That's probably about the threshold where we really need to, like, we've gotten up to a point where any purchase over $1,000 is the stuff that we really need to sit down and discuss and pay close attention to. Otherwise, it's probably not that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know I'm gonna get it. I'll get it at some point here. It's a matter of when, not if. It just got me thinking about how to approach purchases like that a little bit more analytically.
We need to slow down because we've been buying a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I know I just said, like, we're getting to the point where we don't have to think about it, but at the same point, we've also spent a whole bunch of money here recently, and we do need to slow down a little bit to kind of recover, because we've been doing it a little too much. But we're trying to get ready for an open house and try to finish up a few shop projects. It's all one-time purchases that, it's like finishing up this area, finishing up this area, finishing up this area kind of stuff. But we've set up another bucket. That's what I was trying to get to. We're setting up another bucket for big capital expenses that we're dumping money
That makes
into.
sense.
And so basically when that bucket gets full, stuff like 3D printers or a CMM or another machine or whatever, for down payment for another machine, whatever it is, that's going to come out of a capital expenses bucket, like a major capital expenses bucket. And so we have a percentage of our money going into that account now for purchases like that.
Yeah. I emptied my capital expenses budget pretty effectively at the beginning of the year with all of the Aroa stuff. But I mean, like, there's enough in it now where I could just get the printer.
Yeah. I would argue that you need the spindle before you need the printer.
That's true. That is valid.
So if I was going to do a major capital expense, I would get that spindle fixed, and then I would move on to the printer. Unless you can sell your printer for a good enough value that you can offset that difference to a small enough value that it's easier to swallow, and then you can maybe justify going to the.
I don't see getting more than 150 for this thing.
What do you have?
I think Prusa Mini at this point.
Oh, okay.
I think it'd be more worth it just to keep it as having a second printer.
Yeah. Is that the only printer you have? Is the Mini?
That's the only printer I have.
Oh, okay.
It's been a great printer. I've been very happy with it.
Oh yeah.
But
I thought you had a bigger one for some reason.
I did at one point.
Oh, okay.
That one was slow was the problem. It was big, but it was slow.
Okay. Fair enough. The bamboo ones are fast.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons why I want it. Because I do use it occasionally for, like, fixtures and jigs and stuff. And like the other day, I had a fixture that was, like, kind of semi-sacrificial. I could make like 5 or 10 parts on it before it would kind of die on me. And the bottleneck was my printer printing those jigs fast enough.
Yeah. Well, it was today even Weston needed to print a little adapter for the lathe and for a job we were doing, and he printed it in 30 minutes and then found out that he needed to make some adjustments, and so he reprinted another one in about 30 minutes, and like that would have been like 4 hours versus 1 hour with the old printers. So it's just like for stuff like that, you can't like that's where it pays for itself. If you're using it for like what we were for fixtures, I could have 2 slower printers or 1 faster printer, and that 1 faster printer gets me the part sooner rather than getting me 2 parts in the same
Later.
amount later.
Yeah.
And so that's what made it worth it.
Yeah, that's that's one of the reasons one of the ways I'm justifying it. The other way is I do want to do some more like product stuff, and that's going to involve some prototyping, and I need a bigger printer to prototype the stuff that I want to prototype, which is my other big rationale. And kind of also one of my rationales for wanting it sooner rather than later is because I plan on doing that during this next like class iteration, teaching iteration, where most of my income is going to be covered, so I don't really need to be pushing Xometry too hard, and so I can take some time to work on the product route.
Yeah, I'd still like to do products at some point, but I don't see that happening for a long time.
No, you're gonna have to retire first, or maybe not retire, but like you're gonna have to be able to step away from the business.
Yeah,
it's gonna need to be running itself. And then you can do a new business.
I'm gonna need an employee to do like or to be able to like step back and have it run.
But speaking of stepping back, we have a bunch of Patreons, and
Yay.
I think this is a good time to thank those Patreons. So starting with some new Patreons, it's been so long that I don't know since the last time we thanked people. We thanked the new people, but new Patreons include, but are maybe not limited to, Ian B, Robert, no last name, Jacob M, Ashton G, Jeff O'Leary Racing, I pressed a button. Chris M, Jason S, Sean H, and Oishishikanana. So thank you, everybody. We do appreciate you. And Heinz Speed Components, I think we thanked him. Ryan H, Norman K. We definitely thank Norman. So those are all of our new members. And then we have our $10 a month members that we thank every time. And those are Jacob M, Josh H, Chris Z, Dylan P, Freaky Climber, Prescott O, Alexander B, Scott at Design the Everything, Jamie at JSpec Engineering, Chris Zyke from Zyke Precision, EJ at Nocturnal Welding, Chris at Thought Bomb Design, and as ever, Jake Brownson. You can meet many of these people in our Patreon Discord, which is really taking off.
Yeah.
There's been just constant conversation in there. The Discord is actually an excellent place to be.
It is quite crazy how much is going on in there these days.
Yeah, it is a very active Discord community now. Like basically around the clock, there's people talking. I had considered moving that, like adding some way to get in there for free, but I think I do want to keep some barrier of entry to keep the community good. So
yeah.
I apologize for it's $4 a month at the minimum tier for our Patreon. And I don't know, that's just going to have to be the barrier to entry. Sorry, guys. I like things to be free, but I also want to keep the community good. So we'll keep a small nominal fee for that.
The community is really good right now.
What?
The community is really good.
Yeah. It's sometimes it turns into this like Xometry support network, which is pretty fun, where we all help each other with each other's parts. Sometimes we're just having fun. It's a good server.
Yeah.
What else do we say? Oh, all Patreons get early access to our episodes. There is, however, a free tier as well. Now, the free tier does not get you access to the Discord, but it does get you access to our weekly Q&As, which calling them weekly at this point is maybe a little disingenuous. Our sporadic Q&As, we did not do one for this episode, and we didn't do an episode last week. Or we tried to do one last week, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Or the week before. I don't remember.
We tried, I think it was last week. I think it was on Tuesday. It was before I got sick.
It was when I was traveling.
Yeah.
And the Wi-Fi just wasn't having it.
Yeah. Yeah. We tried. And then I ended up spending the rest of the time, because you ended up having to bounce because of your internet. And so I spent the rest of the time talking to everyone on Discord and helping out with a couple problems.
Nice.
That someone was trying to program. So it was a lot of fun.
I feel like I normally do more call to actions than that.
I don't know.
Something else I say?
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Was there any Discord related questions people posted?
I didn't ask. Oh, dude, we normally do this live on Discord and we forgot. Sorry, I'm tired and I've been busy.
It's all right. I haven't been thinking straight because I'm still getting over a sickness and my brain's still off in left field at some points. So,
but the Patreon did pay for your new camera and green screen.
Yeah, thank you guys very much because this is awesome.
What are we gonna do next? What are we gonna upgrade next? We could do nicer mics.
Yeah, or a mic stand, like something that like one of those side stands that mounts from above or something, so it's not sitting on your table. That's what I was thinking would be my next one. Although, yeah, that's what I would probably do next.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. And by look into that, I mean we'll copy whatever Dylan Jackson does at Protium Machining with
there
Intolerance. Though I think his mic setup is really expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to go that all in, but his audio is good.
Doesn't have to be that all in.
There's also the potential of maybe an editor. I don't know if that's going to be worth it or not, bang for buck wise.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or we could do like another Patreon giveaway or something.
Yeah. We could do another giveaway. I wouldn't mind doing that.
We got funds. IMTS isn't this year. I will probably go to FabTech. I was thinking about doing a meetup at FabTech if anybody's going to be there.
When is that?
It's like the same week of September as IMTS when IMTS is in the off year. So it's normally like the weekend around the 9th, like the second weekend of September. It's at McCormick Place.
Do they alternate?
It's free. What?
Do they alternate? Or is FabTech every year or is every other?
I think it's every other year. They might have FabTechs in different locations on the off years. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's definitely not as relevant to a machinist. Like it's far more in the fabrication world, but I figure there might be enough people there to make it worth it. Like maybe I'll just do an Audacity Micro meetup.
Yeah. So is FabTech? So that's gonna be like welders, lasers, deburring,
water jets.
Jets.
They do have automation though. There's normally a big automation.
Welding automation, like that'd be kind of cool.
Coding, finishing.
Yep.
So I might do that for
close, but not always applicable.
Yeah, I would probably just go up, do a day trip, not get a hotel or anything. Just go up in the morning, do that, and then leave. But I figured if I was there, I might as well do a meetup.
I would want to play with a laser welder. I think that would be fun.
Those do look cool.
So yeah, that's about all I got.
Well,
guys, it's been a few weeks, but we finally got together and were able to get another podcast knocked out. Thanks for hanging out with us and for catching up with everything that we got going on. If any of you are in the area this week and want to come by February 7th for the open house, love to have you guys swing by. Other than that, we'll catch up with you guys next time. This has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro. We'll catch up with you guys next time.
If you know someone who's a good podcast editor, send me a message.